Hey nappy friend, welcome back to our nappy little club. You're home now, and we saved your spot. Tonight we are going back, way back. We're stepping into the sandals of a Silk Road spice merchant, a life so precarious, so fraught with peril that you probably wouldn't survive the first week. But that's the beauty of our little corner of the universe. Here, in this cozy space, you get all of the adventure and none of the actual risk of dysentery or being robbed blind by bandits. You're safe and relaxed. The only thing you'll be wrestling with tonight is the gentle pull of sleep. So, before your eyelids get too heavy, if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, tap that like button and subscribe to keep our sleepy adventures coming. After all, nobody wants to miss out on history, right? And as always, please do drop a comment letting us all know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is. It connects us all in this shared sleepy moment. So dim your lights. Tune into the soft, comforting fan hum and ease gently into tonight's journey because you're now officially in Nappy community. You're not just listening. You're an essential part of our Nappy family, where every night is soothing, special, and yours. You're safe, valued, and always welcome. The air in Samarkand is thick with endings and beginnings. You can taste it, dry, gritty flavor of dust from the Kazilkum dessert, yet sweetened by the impossible perfume of 1,000 fortunes being packed. You stand in the courtyard of the caravanserai, arms crossed, your shadow long and thin in the late afternoon sun. This is the moment you've worked towards for months. The deals have been struck, the silver has been paid, and now your entire existence is being strapped to the backs of 22 very reluctant camels. Each grunt and groan from the beasts echoes the knot of anxiety in your own stomach. You are a Sogdian merchant, a son of a long line of merchants, and this is the life you chose. Or perhaps the life that chose you. You watch your men, their movements practiced and efficient, as they hoist another burlap sack. You can smell its contents from here, cloves. From the far-off islands of the Moluccas, a scent so potent it feels like currency itself. In your mind, you see not a dusty bag, but a pile of Byzantine gold coins, enough to secure your family's comfort for another year. Another sack goes up, this one filled with peppercorns from the Malabar coast of India. You personally inspected this shipment yesterday, taking a single, hard black corn and crushing it between your thumb and forefinger. The sharp, almost citrusy explosion of scent that followed was the only guarantee of quality you needed. It was pure, unadulterated, and powerful enough to make a Roman nobleman weep with joy and pay handsomely for the privilege. This is Samarkand, the jewel of the world, or so the poets say. For you, it is simply the heart. It is the central artery through which the lifeblood of continents flows. To your left, a group of Chinese traders in silk robes quietly sip tea, their own goods already sold, their faces serene. To your right, a Persian artisan argues loudly over the price of turquoise. You hear your native Sogdian tongue, a familiar island in a sea of Turkic, Persian, and a dozen other dialects. You find yourself reflecting on your identity, a thought that often comes at the start of a long journey. You speak a language heavily influenced by Persian, write in a script derived from ancient Aramaic, and your beliefs are a comfortable blend of Zoroastrian fire worship and older, local traditions. Future historians will spend lifetimes debating whether your people were a distinct civilization or merely a cultural bridge, a fusion of greater empires. You don't possess the luxury for such abstract thoughts. To you, it is simply who you are. This city of brilliant blue-tiled mosques and bustling markets is your home, but the road is your true country. You walk over to the lead camel, a grizzled veteran of the trail you've nicknamed the Senator for his perpetually unimpressed. and slightly disdainful expression. You run your hand over the intricate knots that secure his load. This is a skill more valuable than speaking another language. The camelman's knot. A complex weave of rope that can be tightened with a single pull, but will never slip on its own. An unbalanced load doesn't just mean lost profit. It can cripple a camel, and a crippled camel in the middle of the Taklamakan. Desert is a death sentence for the animal and a disaster for its owner. Your men are good, but trust is a commodity more precious than saffron. You check every single knot on every single beast yourself. It's a ritual, one that soothes the nerves. Your cargo is a mobile treasure chest. Cloves, pepper, nutmeg, and a few carefully wrapped bolts of silk you acquired in a shrewd trade. The value packed into this small space is staggering. It's enough to buy a palace in Constantinople, or to vanish into the sand without a trace. It is the physical manifestation of risk. A man approaches your chief camelier, a Bactrian with a face like a sun-baked map. He speaks in clipped phrases, assuring you everything is balanced, everything is secure. You nod, thank him, and mentally decide you'll still be sleeping, with one eye open for the first week. Not out of distrust for him, but out of a deep and abiding respect for the road's infinite capacity for theft, both by man and by nature. As the final sack is secured, a hush falls over your corner of the courtyard. The work is done. The camels sit, chewing cud, looking utterly indifferent to the fortune they carry. The sun dips below the grand arch of the Registan, painting the sky in hues of orange and deep purple. Tomorrow, before dawn, you will walk out of these gates and turn your face to the west. You are a whisper in the grand story of the Silk Road. But tonight, holding the weight of all those clothes and all those promises, you feel like the center of the world. The rhythm of the journey has long since settled into your bones. It's a slow, swaying metronome set by the plodding feet of your camels. A rhythm marked by the rising and setting of a relentless sun. The vibrant chaos of Samarkand is now a distant memory, a dream of blue tiles and bustling crowds. Out here, the world has been bleached of color and sound. You are 3 weeks into the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Taklamakan Desert. Its name, in the local dialect, is a piece of famously unreassuring advice. He who enters never leaves. You find yourself wishing the locals had workshopped a more optimistic slogan. The day begins like any other. The morning air is crisp and cool, a fleeting gift before the heat arrives. The sky is a vast, empty canvas of pale blue. But your chief camelier, the old Bactrian, keeps squinting at the western horizon. He says nothing, but you see him test the air, sniffing it like an animal. You've learned to trust these subtle signs for more than any map. Around midday, you notice it too. A stillness. The air, usually alive with a light breeze that offers the illusion of relief, becomes unnervingly static and heavy. The camels are the next to sound the alarm. Their usual symphony of low, complaining groans changes key, becoming higher-pitched, more anxious. The senator, your lead camel, stops dead, lifts his head, and lets out a mournful bellow that seems to hang in the dead air. And then you see it, a faint, yellowish-brown haze on the horizon. At first, it's just a smudge, a discoloration of the otherwise perfect sky. But it grows with an unnatural speed, not like a cloud, but like a stain spreading across fabric. The haze solidifies, rising into a churning, monstrous wall of sand and dust that seems to touch the heavens. It has a name here. The locals call it the Yellow Dragon, a beast that awakens to swallow the world. From your vantage point, the name feels terrifyingly apt. The distant, silent wall of chaos is moving towards you, and there is nowhere to run. There is no cover. There is only the protocol, down. You shout. your voice cracking in the dry air. Circle them now. There is no panic among your men, only a desperate, focused efficiency. They know the drill. They pull on the lead ropes, forcing the camels to their knees with practiced urgency. The animals, sensing the coming apocalypse, are more compliant than usual. They are arranged in a tight circle, their bodies facing inward, their rumps to the storm. It's a living fortress of leather and fur. You and your men scramble into the small space created in the center, dragging with you the most precious of the supplies, the water skins and a small sack of your most valuable clothes. You wouldn't want to die of thirst, but dying poor was also a distinct concern. You pull a thick, greasy wool blanket over your head, and just as you do, the world ends. The sun vanishes. Daylight is extinguished in an instant, plunging you into an absolute, suffocating darkness. The sound is the next thing to hit. The distant roar becomes a physical presence, a deafening, high-pitched shriek that bypasses your ears and vibrates deep inside your chest. It's the sound of the world being scoured clean. Under the blanket, the air becomes hot and chokingly thick. You can hear the muffled, terrified groans of the camels around you, the only sound that proves you are not alone in this roaring void. You press your face into the rough wool, trying to breathe, but every inhalation is filled with the fine, gritty taste of the dessert. It's in your mouth, your nostrils, behind your eyes. Time ceases to have meaning. It could be minutes or hours. Your world is reduced to a single, overwhelming sensory input, the scream of the wind and the grit of sand. In the darkness, your mind wanders. You question your decision to take this northern route. Scholars and merchants have always debated the safest path across the Taklamakan. The southern route, skirting the Kunlun Mountains, was said to have more reliable oases. But recent reports spoke of tribal conflicts and bandit crews grown bold. You chose the northern path, the more barren and desolate of the two, gambling on facing the devil of nature rather than the devil of man. Huddled in the dark, with the yellow dragon trying to tear its way through your camel fortress, you are not entirely sure you made the right bet. You feel a soft, heavy thud against your back. It's the senator, pressed close, his immense body acting as your personal windbreak. You can feel the rhythmic tremor of his breathing, a slow, steady anchor in the chaos. In this moment, you feel a profound, unspoken gratitude for this ill-tempered, smelly beast. He is, quite literally, saving your life. You press a hand back against his coarse fur. A silent thank you. Then, as gradually as it began, the storm starts to recede. The shriek lowers to a howl, then a deep moan, and finally, a mournful whisper, a dim, osier light begins to penetrate your blanket. You wait, listening to the groans of the men and beasts around you, nobody wanting to be the first to look. Finally, you push the heavy wool away from your face. The world is remade. The sky is a sickly yellow-gray. Every surface, including your own skin, is coated in a fine layer of dust. The landscape is alien. Familiar dunes have vanished, and new ones have been sculpted by the wind. The air smells of ozone and wet sand. You get to your feet, your joints aching, and do a quick head count. The men are all there, shaken but unharmed. You walk the circle, checking each camel. They are exhausted, their hides caked with a thick crust of sand, but they are alive. Their bodies shielded you. You pull a water skin from the protected pile, take a small, gritty sip, and pass it to your cameleer. His eyes meet yours, and in them, you see the same weary relief that you feel in your own heart. The yellow dragon has passed. You have survived. The memory of the yellow dragon has faded, replaced by a new, more mundane kind of anxiety. You have left the empty quarter of the desert behind, and are now traversing a land dotted with small, fortified settlements. These are the arteries of the Mongol Empire, the Yam relay stations that ensure messages and armies can move with incredible speed. For a traveler like you, they are a paradox, a source of fresh water and relative safety, but also a point of control. Each one is a spider's web, and you must pass through without getting caught. You see the next one ahead, a squat, mud brick fortress shimmering in the heat, and a familiar tension settles in your stomach. This part of the journey is not a battle against nature, but a delicate, dangerous dance with human greed. As your caravan approaches, a man emerges from the gate. He is not a soldier clad in leather and steel, but an administrator. You can tell by his clothes a silk robe, far too fine for this dusty outpost, and soft leather slippers that have never known a long walk. He is well fed, and his hands, are clean and uncalloused. He approaches with a smile that is a masterpiece of insincerity. It is wide and welcoming, but it never reaches his dark, calculating eyes. This, is the most dangerous man you will meet for 1,000 miles. "Welcome, traveler. Welcome," he says, his voice smooth as honey. "The peace of the Great Khan protects you here. Come, you must be weary. Let us share some tea while your animals are tended to." This invitation is not an act of hospitality. It is a summons. Refusal is not an option. You leave your chief camelier in charge, giving him a subtle look that says, "Guard the cargo with your life," and follow the official into a shaded courtyard. The tea is served in delicate porcelain cups that feel impossibly out of place. The conversation begins, a slow, circling dance of pleasantries. He asks about your home in Samarkand, the hardships of your journey, the health of your camels. He never asks what you are carrying, but he mentions the exotic aroma that your caravan brings, a pleasant change from the usual smell of dust and livestock. Every word is a gentle probe, an assessment of your wealth and your intelligence. You understand this is the first act of a well-rehearsed play. To respond incorrectly is to invite disaster. This is where the true art of trade lies, not in the marketplace, but in these quiet, tense encounters. This is where the debate among historians about the Mongol Empire's structure becomes a matter of life and death. In the great cities, the Khan's law is a powerful, unifying force. But out here, in the vast spaces between them, the empire is less a monolith and more a loose collection of personal fiefdoms. The official in front of you is the Khan's representative, but the Khan is a year's ride away. This man's authority and his greed are immediate. He is the one you must appease. Knowing your cue, you reach into a small pouch you carry for exactly this purpose. You do not produce a bag of silver. Such a move would be offensively direct, an insult to his carefully constructed veneer of civility. Instead, you withdraw a small, beautifully carved jade pendant. You had acquired it in Conan for this very purpose. You place it on the table between you. A humble gift, you say softly, a token of my respect for your master, the Great Khan, and for you, his wise and generous servant who maintains this vital outpost. He picks up the pendant, his soft fingers turning it over in the light. He praises its color, its craftsmanship. He holds it for a moment too long. "It is a thing of beauty," he says, his smile tightening just a fraction. A testament to the peace that allows such artistry to flourish. But this peace, it is a fragile thing. The roads must be patrolled, the wells maintained. The benevolence of the Great Khan requires significant resources to enforce in these remote lands. He places the pendant down. The message is clear. It is not enough. A cold knot forms in your gut. You feel the weight of your peppercorns, your clothes, your entire future, sitting outside under the watchful eye of this smiling predator. You could protest, could invoke the Khan's law against extortion, but you would be quoting scripture to a demon. He holds all the power here. He could invent a dozen infractions, a tax on foreign goods, a fine for overloaded camels, a quarantine for imagined diseases that would strip you of half your cargo legally. The line between tax and theft is drawn by the man with the bigger stick. So, you move to the second act of the play. You incline your head with an expression of solemn understanding. You speak with great wisdom. You concede. The work you do here is vital. Perhaps my caravan can make a more substantial contribution to the upkeep of this station. You signal to one of your men waiting by the gate. He brings a small, tightly sealed burlap sack. It's heavy. It contains 10 pounds of your finest Malabar peppercorns. It's a painful loss, a direct slice from your profits, but it is a calculated one. You place it on the table next to the jade. For the welfare of the soldiers and the maintenance of the well, you say, the light tasting like dust in your mouth. The official looks at the sack, then at you, and for the first time, his smile reaches his eyes. It is a flash of triumphant, reptilian satisfaction. You are a pious and considerate man, he declares, his voice now booming with false friendship. The great Khan is fortunate to have such loyal subjects traversing his lands. He claps his hands. A subordinate appears as if from nowhere. The official gestures to your gifts, which are quickly whisked away. He then takes a piece of parchment, dips a quill in ink, and with a flourish, stamps it with his official seal. Your passage is approved, he says, handing it to you. May your journey be swift and your profits plentiful. You thank him, bow, and walk out of the courtyard, the warmth of the sun feeling like a distant stranger. Back at your caravan, the mood is lighter. The camels have been watered, your men have refilled their skins. The path forward is clear. You mount your own camel, the stamped parchment tucked safely in your robe, feeling the phantom weight of the 10 pounds of pepper you no longer possess. The cost of passage has been paid. The land has changed. The endless sea of sand has given way to a vast, ochre-colored plateau, broken by the jagged teeth of distant mountains. You are in Persia, the heartland of an ancient empire, now tamed under the banner of the Ilkhanate. The air is different here. It carries the scent of dry earth and occasionally the faint, ghostly perfume of irrigated fields and unseen rose gardens. For the first time in months, the journey has found a rhythm that feels less like survival and more like simple travel. This is the dividend of the Mongol conquest. This is the Pax Mongolica. It's a strange and bitter piece, and you have plenty of time to contemplate it from your swaying perch atop your camel. Your father used to tell you stories of this same route in his youth. A treacherous tapestry of warring kingdoms, petty shadams, and a different toll booth with a different greedy official every 50 miles. A merchant then was as much a diplomat and a soldier as a trader. Now, you can travel for 1,000 miles under the watchful eye of a single, terrifying authority. The Mongols destroyed the old world, burning cities and slaughtering millions. But in their wake, they forged a continent into a single, contiguous empire. This brutal, enforced peace is the secret ingredient in your pepper, the unseen commodity that makes your entire enterprise possible. You can travel from the China Sea to the shores of the Mediterranean with a single set of travel documents, provided they bear the Khan's seal. A quiet road, you reflect, is the most valuable luxury in the world. This quiet, however, brings its own challenges. With the daily threat of death from thirst or violence diminished, your mind is left to wander the vast, empty landscapes of your own thoughts. As you pass the ruins of once great cities like Merv or Nishapur, places that stood for 1,000 years before the Mongol hordes arrived, you feel a profound sense of melancholy. You are a Sogdian, And you are beginning to realize that you are a ghost walking through the ghost of your own culture. Here in Persia, everyone speaks Persian. In the markets, you hear Turkic dialects spoken by the soldiers and administrators. Your own language, the tongue of your ancestors who for centuries were the undisputed masters of this road, is now a private thing, spoken only with a few other merchants in the quiet of a caravanserai. Your own children, back in Samarkand, are already peppering their speech with Persian words. They attend schools where the poetry of Sadi is taught. You realize with a slow, creeping certainty that your people are disappearing, not through war or plague, but through a gentle, relentless process of absorption. You are becoming Persian. You are becoming Turkic. The world your people connected has, in turn, consumed you. You facilitate the exchange of silk, spices, and ideas. But the price of that role is your own identity. You are the ultimate middleman, so perfectly adapted to living between cultures that you are now dissolving into them. A strange, ironic fate for a people who once taught the world how to trade. One evening, in a large, well-maintained caravanserai, you see them, a small party of men from the West. They are not the usual Greeks or Armenians. These men are paler, with light-colored hair and beards, and they speak a harsh, unfamiliar Latin tongue. Venetians. You overhear someone say, they are loud, endlessly, curious, and are constantly scribbling in small, leather-bound books. You watch them from a distance as you eat your simple meal of flatbread and lentils. They gesture wildly, trying to bargain for a new horse. Their unfamiliarity with the local customs painfully obvious. You've heard tales of men like these. A few years ago, two brothers and a son from that same city, Venice, were said to have traveled this entire route and even went far beyond, to the fabled court of the great Khan himself in Cathay. Historians centuries from now will debate the truth of this traveler's tale, questioning if he truly saw all that he claimed. For you, it is not a matter of history, but of mild professional curiosity. These newcomers are an oddity, a sign of how safe the roads have become. Your people have traveled this path for generations. Your knowledge passed from father to son, your credit networks built on quiet trust and reputation, not unwritten accounts of wonders meant to impress some distant king. You are the invisible ink that writes the contracts of the world. They are merely the flamboyant storytellers. You feel a flicker of pride, mixed with the sad resignation of a master craftsman, watching an amateur plate with his tools dot the long, peaceful days turn into weeks. The initial relief has become a kind of meditative boredom. You know every groan of your camels, every twist in the road. You spend hours simply watching the clouds drift across the immense sky, your mind empty. This is the part of the journey that truly tests a man. Not the storms or the bandits, but the crushing, silent weight of the miles. You are no longer just a merchant carrying spices. You are a man carrying his own thoughts across a continent. You are a ghost, a whisper of a dying culture. And yet, you have never felt more alive. The sun sets, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the plain. You are utterly alone, and yet, you are the vital thread connecting the entire known world. Tabriz is not a stop. It is an arrival. After months on the plateaus of Persia, riding into the capital of the Ilkhanate is like stepping from a silent room into a roaring feast. The city is a vibrant, chaotic explosion of life, the true nexus between East and West. Your caravan joins a river of other travelers, merchants, soldiers, pilgrims, and emissaries, all flowing towards the city's heart. You guide your animals to a familiar caravanserai, a sprawling, two-story complex that is a city unto itself. The air is a thick soup of smells: roasting lamb, fragrant spices, animal dung, and the sweet perfume of hookah smoke. the sound is a constant hum of a dozen languages, the braying of donkeys, the clang of a blacksmith's hammer, and the shouting of vendors. For many, this is overwhelming. For you, this is the sound of opportunity. Your main cargo, the finest cloves and peppercorns, is destined for the even richer markets of Constantinople. But you are a practical man. The journey from here is still long and expensive. You need fresh silver for supplies, for guards through the treacherous mountains of Anatolia, and for the inevitable port fees and taxes that await you at the Black Sea. To raise it, you will sell a portion of your secondary goods, several sacks of lower-grade peppercorns, still valuable but lacking the potent kick of your primary stock, and a bolt of fine Khotanese silk you acquired for a good price weeks ago. This is not a simple transaction to be shouted over a market stall. This requires subtlety and skill. You do not seek out a buyer yourself. Instead, you seek out a dalal, a professional bargaining interpreter. You find your man, a lean, weary Persian named Hashem, whom you have worked with before. His job is not merely to translate, but to navigate the treacherous currents of a high-stakes negotiation, to act as a buffer, and to ensure no party loses face. He is a human technology of commerce, and he is worth every fraction of his fee. Hashem arranges a meeting for the following afternoon. Your prospective buyer is a prominent Armenian carpet merchant named Levin, a man who also dabbles in spice and silk to diversify his fortunes. You meet in a quiet, carpeted alcove of the caravanserai. Levin is a formidable presence, a large man with a thick, graying beard and eyes that seem to hold a deep, ancient weariness. He has a face, you think, that has been perpetually disappointed by the quality of the world's goods. The three of you sit, and a servant brings tea in small, elegant glasses. The ritual begins. For the first hour, business is not mentioned. Through Hashem, you and Levin discuss the journey. You speak of the sandstorm in the Taklamakan. He complains about the quality of wool from Anatolia this season. You both praise the wisdom and strength of the Khan. It is a slow, intricate dance of words, each of you assessing the other, searching for weaknesses, gauging intent. You watch Levin's hands, how he holds his tea, the slight flicker of his eyes. He is, you surmise, a patient but proud man. He will not be rushed, and he will not be seen as a fool. Finally, Hashem, judging the moment to be right, broaches the subject. My friend from Samarkand, he begins, his voice calm and measured, has brought a small quantity of pepper and a rather lovely bolt of silk he is willing to part with, as he has no need of them for his onward journey. He then presents a small sample of the pepper. Levin takes a few peppercorns, rolls them in his palm, and sniffs them with the air of a man expecting to be offended. The road is long, he says, his words relayed by Hashem. The dust and humidity of the journey have surely taken their toll on the spice's fire. The game is afoot, Hashem counters, praising the secure packing methods you employed, insisting the spice is as fresh as the day it was bought in India. And so it goes, a gentle, verbal volley of offers and counter-offers, all couched in polite, indirect language. You want 10 silver dirhams per pound. He offers 6, citing a saturated market. Your mind races, calculating your landing cost, your desired profit margin, the fee for Hashem. You are acutely aware of the silver coins themselves. You remember well, just a few years ago, when the Ilkhan Ghazan, in his wisdom, tried to force merchants to use paper money, the chow modeled after the currency of his cousin, the great Khan in Cathay. The experiment was a catastrophe. Commerce ground to a halt as no one trusted the flimsy paper. There were riots in this very city. The policy was abandoned in weeks. A humbling lesson for the rulers and a powerful confirmation for merchants like you. Only the heft of precious metal, the satisfying weight of a silver dirham or a gold dinar, holds true value. The debate of economists was settled in the streets. You would not trade your precious pepper for a politician's promise. You instruct Hashem to hold firm at 9 dirhams, but to praise Levin's discerning eye and business acumen. The praise is a crucial part of the transaction. Another 30 minutes pass in this slow, hypnotic rhythm. Finally, you decide to close. Tell the honorable master, you say to Hashem, that my final price is 8 dirhams. And because I so value his wisdom and hope to do business with him again, I will include the burlap sacks at no extra cost. It is a classic maneuver. The sacks are worthless, but the gesture allows Levin to feel he has won a concession. He has extracted something extra. He confers quietly with Hashem in the Armenian tongue, his eyes fixed on you. You hold his gaze, your face a mask of calm neutrality. He gives a short, sharp nod. The deal is struck. The silver is broad, weighed on a small, accurate scale that Hashem provides. The coins are counted. Hashem takes his percentage, and the rest is poured into your leather pouch. The weight is immensely satisfying. You and Levin stand and shake hands. For the first time, a genuine smile touches his lips. It is the quiet, shared acknowledgement of a game well played. You have both gotten what you wanted. He has his goods at a fair price. You have your silver, the fuel for the final leg of your dream. That night, the ceaseless noise of the caravanserai feels like a lullaby, and the heavy pouch of coins tied to your belt is a more comforting presence than any guard. The mountains of Anatolia were the final barrier, a last, rugged test of endurance. For weeks, you guided your caravan through narrow passes and steep, winding trails. But now, the land is softening. The harsh, rocky landscape has given way to rolling green hills and valleys lush with the kind of life you haven't seen in almost a year. The air itself feels different. It's heavier, wetter, and carries a strange, sharp tang on the morning breeze. Your cameliers are restless, their faces filled with a nervous energy. The camels, however, seem to hate it. They groan and protest more than usual, their dessert-born sensibilities offended by the dampness. You know what it is. It is the smell of the sea. It's a scent so alien after months of dust and dry grass that it feels like a memory from another. Life, a primal recollection of the world's edge. A few days later, you crest a final, gentle hill. And there it is. The sight stops the entire caravan in its tracks. Before you lies not a river, not a lake, but an endless, churning expanse of dark, gray-blue water that merges seamlessly with the sky at the horizon. The Black Sea, for a man who has spent his entire existence measuring distances by days of travel across solid ground. The sheer, uninterrupted scale of it is dizzying. It is a void, a barrier, and a promise, all at once. The sound, too, is a revelation. The familiar silence of the steppe is replaced by a deep, rhythmic sigh as waves collapse upon the shore, and the air is filled with the sharp, almost frantic, cries of birds you do not recognize. You guide your weary animals down towards the coast, towards the port city of Trebizond. It is a place of jarring contrasts. The ancient stone walls and domed churches speak of the Byzantine Empire that once ruled here, but the presence of the Mongol Ilkhanate is felt in the soldiers who patrol the gates. Yet, as you enter the city proper, another power reveals itself to be dominant. The flags flying from the tallest warehouses and the most impressive buildings bear not the cross, or the Khan's Tamga, but the Red Cross of Genoa. This is a city within a city. a Genos trading colony that serves as the western terminus for 1,000 overland routes. This is the doorway to Europe. The familiar, methodical work of the road is over, replaced by a new kind of chaos. Your first task is a bittersweet one, selling your camels. These beasts, your companions in misery and survival, are of no use to you now. You find a dealer in the livestock market and haggle for a fair price, giving your lead camel, the senator, a final, long look. His perpetually unimpressed gaze seems to soften for a moment, a flicker of shared experience, before he is led away. Your next task is to navigate the port's bureaucracy. You must rent secure warehouse space for your precious spices, protecting them from the humid air and the city's notoriously brazen thieves. You must pay docking fees, exit tariffs, and cargo duties, a process that feels like a more organized version of your encounter with the smiling official weeks ago. As you work, you observe the frantic life of the port. It is a dizzying microcosm of the world. Huge, seaworthy cogs are being loaded with furs from the north, timber from the surrounding forests, and amphorae of wine. You see your fellow merchants, Persians, Arabs, Russians, all ending their long journeys here. And you see the Italians, the masters of this domain, their loud, expressive language echoing across the stone docks in the harbor, teeming with ships and people. You see the breathtaking efficiency of global trade. You also see things you don't truly comprehend. You see the cramped quarters, the filth that runs in the gutters, the ubiquitous rats that scurry fearlessly between sacks of grain. You see it all as part of the vibrant, messy business of commerce, unaware that you are looking at the perfect engine for a coming catastrophe. Centuries from now, historians will debate how the Great Plague made its leap from Asia to Europe. They will argue whether it was carried by Mongol armies or traveled along commercial routes like this one. Standing here, watching a rat disappear into the hold of a ship bound for the West, you are an unknowing witness. Proof that the mundane realities of trade can carry consequences far deadlier than any army. Finally, after days of negotiation, your passage is booked on a Genos merchant ship. Your spices, now sealed in wax-lined barrels to protect them from the sea, are carefully logged and loaded into the hold. One evening, you stand on the pier, the setting sun painting the water in shades of gold and purple. The journey that consumed the last year of your life, the journey across the entire breadth of Asia, is over. You survived the desert, the bandits, the officials, and the endless solitude. Now you must place your life and your fortune into the hands of a stout, bearded captain who smells of wine and salt water. You walk up the wooden gangplank, the gentle sway of the ship beneath your feet a strange and unnerving sensation. You are leaving the continent of your birth behind. Constantinople, the city of gold and legend, is just a few days' sail away. The greatest prize is finally within your reach. The world has shrunk to the size of this ship. Life is now measured by the creak of timber, the snap of wine-filled sails, and the endless, hypnotic rhythm of the waves. The Genos sailors are a loud, boisterous tribe, constantly shouting in their musical tongue, their lives governed by ropes, stars, and the whims of the wind. Your role, for the first time in nearly a year, is to be passive. You are cargo, just like the barrels of spice safely stowed in the hold. This enforced idleness gives your mind license to drift, not to the past or the future, but to the intricate, invisible machinery that makes your world turn. One night, unable to sleep in your small, stuffy cabin, you light a swaying oil lamp. From a secret pouch sewn into the lining of your tunic, you retrieve not a bag of coins, but a folded piece of parchment. In the flickering light, it looks unremarkable. It is not treasure that would glitter in a thief's eye. And yet, this single piece of paper is arguably worth more than the entire ship and its contents. It is a letter of credit, a technology of trust perfected by your people, the Sogdians. Over centuries of trial and error, you carefully unfold it. The script is your own, a flowing, elegant hand that connects letters in a way that always reminded you of woven silk. It is a letter addressed to a man you have never met, a merchant named Rashniden, who operates a warehouse near the Golden Horn in Constantinople. He is a distant relative, a cousin of your father's business partner, a single node in the vast, familial web that blankets the continent. The letter is a simple, polite instruction. Upon presentation, Rashniden is to pay you, the bearer, the sum of 500 Byzantine gold solidi. The genius of it still fills you with a quiet sense of, those 500 gold coins are already yours, waiting for you in the world's greatest city. But you did not carry them. You did not risk robbery or loss. Instead, months ago, back in the bustling markets of Samarkand, you deposited an equivalent, value in silver dirhams with Rashniden's local agent. This letter is the ghost of that silver, a promise that has traveled with you, weightless and silent, across deserts and mountains. This system, these ancient letters, is what separates true merchants from simple traders. While others haul heavy chests of coin, you carry wealth in the form of a whisper, a written word. Of course, a promise is only as good as its security. You tilt the parchment towards the lamp, examining the details that only a trained eye would see. There is the wax seal, yes, bearing the mark of the agent's family, but that is for show. The real security is hidden in plain sight. You check. The string that binds the letters folded is tied with a specific triple loop knot that is the secret signature of the Samarkand office this season. A forger might replicate the seal, but he would not know the knot. You then hold the paper, flat, letting the light shine through it. There, faint as a phantom, is the watermark, a stylized camel with 2 humps. The private mark of the paper maker your network exclusively uses. Future historians may debate the literacy rates of merchants on the Silk Road, wondering if most of you were numerate but unlettered, relying on scribes to read and write your contracts. You find the debate amusing. For a Sogdian, literacy was not a mere convenience. It was a fundamental tool of the trade, a weapon of commerce. The Genos captain of this very ship can barely scrawl his own name, relying on a clerk to log his cargo. You, however, can read the finest nuance in a contract, draft a threatening letter to a debtor, or, most importantly, verify the authenticity of a document like this one with your own eyes. This knowledge, this self-reliance, is a fortress that protects your wealth. But the final layer of security is not physical at all. It is a concept you know as Fravardish. It is not just trust or honor. It is the shared, collective reputation of your entire people. If Rashniden in Constantinople were to see this letter, with its perfect knots and watermarks, and still refuse to pay, he would not just be cheating you. He would be committing commercial suicide. Word would travel back along the road, past, in whispers from caravanserai to caravanserai. His name, and the name of his family, would be poison. No one would extend him credit, buy his goods, or sell him supplies. He would be excommunicated from the invisible empire of trade. It is this web of mutual self-interest and shared consequence, more than any seal or signature, that gives this piece of paper its immense power. You fold the letter with care. The crinkle of the parchment a soft, reassuring sound in the quiet cabin. You place it back in its hidden pouch, its presence a warm spot against your chest. The sailors overhead can have their loud commands and their physical strength. You are a merchant of the silent word, a practitioner of an ancient and subtle art. Your greatest treasures are not the fragrant spices in the hold, but the abstract, powerful promises woven from ink and trust that connect your scattered world. The deck of the Genos ship is a small, chaotic world of its own. In the afternoons, when their duties allow, the sailors gather in the ship's waist to play games of chance. They play with loud shouts, dramatic groans, and thunderous slaps. On the table, there are arguments over a single misplaced card escalating into theatrical displays of accusation and reconciliation. You watch them from the stern, a small, amused smile on your face. Their way of being is so direct, so loud, so unsubtle. Their boisterousness brings to mind a memory, a form of commerce so opposite to their clamor that it seems to belong to another reality entirely. You close your eyes, and the scent of salt and tar is replaced by the crisp, pine-scented air of the northern forests. It was years ago, on a different kind of journey. You were not heading west for Constantinople, but north, on a brutal side road that led to the edge of the great, dark taiga. You were not trading for spices, but for the luxurious, almost black sable furs prized by Mongol nobles and Byzantine impresses alike. Your destination was not a city, but a specific clearing in an ocean of trees, marked by a single, enormous moss-covered boulder. Your father had called it the Ancestor Stone, and his father before him. It was a place of trade, but one where you would never meet your partners. This was the land of the forest people, and this was the site of the silent trade. The practice was ancient, a ritual perfected over generations to bridge the gap between two worlds that shared no language and no culture. Upon reaching the clearing, your caravan halted, following the precise instructions passed down to you. Your men laid out your offerings on the flat top of the Ancestor Stone, sacks of precious salt, sharp iron axe heads, fine bronze needles, and strings of brightly colored Venetian glass beads that shimmered like captive rainbows in the dappled sunlight. Once your goods were displayed, the most important part of the ritual began. You and your men would withdraw, riding back several miles until the clearing was lost to sight. There, you would make a cold camp and light a single, small signal fire, its smoke a thin, vertical line in the still air. The fire was a sign of peace, a declaration that you were waiting and would not spring a trap. Then, you simply waited. The silence of the forest was absolute, a profound quiet that was far deeper than the mere absence of noise. It felt watchful, intelligent. You returned the next morning, your heart always beating a little faster with anticipation. Your goods were gone. The salt, the axes, the needles, the beads all vanished. In their place, piled neatly on the stone, was a fortune in sable pelts, deep, dark, and impossibly soft. Their quality was magnificent. This was the moment of judgment. You would inspect the pile. If the value of the furs seemed fair for the goods you had left, you would take the pile, and the deal was concluded. If you felt the offering was insufficient, you would not touch the furs. You would simply leave them, perhaps taking back one of your less valuable offerings, a string of beads, for example, to signal your polite dissatisfaction. You would then retreat and wait another day, giving the unseen traders a chance to add to their offer. It was a slow, deliberate negotiation conducted without a single word, gesture, or argument. It was, you reflect, far more civilized than most of the haggling you'd done in your life. On that long-ago trip, the offering was more than fair. You took the furs, leaving the stone bare, and began your journey south, your mind filled with the strangeness and elegance of the exchange. Future scholars and anthropologists would call this dumb barter, and they would debate its origins. Was it born from a simple lack of a common language? Or was it a feature, of trading with exceptionally shy, reclusive tribes who feared face-to-face contact, Having practiced it, always believed those theories were too simple. You saw it not as a primitive workaround, but as a highly sophisticated social technology. It was a system designed to eliminate conflict entirely. There could be no disputes over weights and measures, no accusations of cheating, no loss of face, no heated arguments that could escalate to violence. The goods spoke for themselves in a conversation of pure value. It was a ritual built on a foundation of profound, generational trust. To violate it to take the goods and leave nothing, or to leave an insulting offer would be to sever a connection that had enriched both sides for centuries. A loud cheer from the sailors breaks your reverie. A man with a wild, red beard has won his game of cards and is collecting his small pile of copper coins. Laughing triumphantly, you look at his simple, direct victory, and then think of the silent, invisible people of the forest, the Genos on. This ship believe in what they can see and touch and shout about. Their world is built on loud contracts and noisy arguments. But your world, the world of the long-distance merchant, is held together by quieter, stronger things, the invisible web of Fravardish, the unspoken promise of a letter of credit, and the deep, silent trust that allowed you to exchange salt for sable with a ghost in the woods. You pull your cloak tighter against the sea breeze. A quiet keeper of secrets they could never comprehend. A Genos sailor is trying to speak to you. He points towards the sky, then mimes the flapping of a bird, then makes a whizzing sound. He is, you think, trying to tell you that the winds are favorable. You nod and smile, a universal gesture of polite incomprehension. The simple, frustrating barrier of this moment to intelligent men unable to share a simple thought sends your mind drifting back over the linguistic maze you have just navigated. This short voyage on a monolingual ship is a quiet paradise. Compared to the cacophony of the road, you sometimes think the biblical tale of the Tower of Babel wasn't a story about divine punishment, but simply an accurate historical account of the first large-scale trading expedition. From your perch atop a camel, the world was a shifting kaleidoscope of languages. Your own mind is a well-traveled map of dialects. Your mother tongue, of course, is Sogdian, the elegant, ancient language of commerce. Now sadly fading, but still the language of your secret ledgers and letters of credit. You are as fluent in Persian as any poet from Shiraz, a necessity for dealing with the administrators and cultural elite of the Ilkhanate, for the daily business of the road haggling for fodder, directing cameliers, placating soldiers at checkpoints. You rely on your command of Cuman Turkic, the lingua franca of the steppes. Some historians will one day debate whether merchants, like you, were true polyglots or simply masters of managing interpreters. You know the truth lies in the middle, but you have always believed that relying solely on another man's tongue is like letting another man hold your purse. You need to know enough to tell when you're being cheated. And then there were the places where even your extensive arsenal of languages fell short. In the high passes of the Pamirs or the dusty markets on the edge of the Gobi, you would encounter men whose speech was a collection of sounds as alien as the cries of unknown birds. Here, you would resort to another language, an unspoken secret of the road, the trade pigeon. It was an ugly, brutal, but effective thing. A Frankenstein's monster stitched together from the scraps of a dozen vocabularies. You could have an entire negotiation that consisted of the Persian word for good, the Chinese number for 10, the Turkic verb for give, and a great deal of emphatic pointing. It was a language without a grammar, a past, or a future tense. It lived only in the present moment of the transaction, a desperate and temporary bridge built across a chasm of mutual ignorance. Even with your skills, a good interpreter was often worth his weight in the goods being traded. You think of Hashem, the Dalil in Tabriz, whose subtle phrasing and understanding of honorifics smoothed the path to your deal. You also remember, with a grimace, an interpreter you hired once in a small town near the Caspian Sea. You were trying to convey your admiration for a local chieftain's horse, praising its fiery spirit. The interpreter, a man of profound incompetence, somehow translated this to mean you believed the horse was literally on fire. The resulting confusion and outrage nearly cost you a valuable trading relationship and taught you a permanent lesson about the dangers of a poor translation. Ultimately, however, all these spoken and gestured languages were just a prelude. They were the warm, imprecise air that surrounded the cold, hard heart of the matter. When the pleasantries were exhausted, the interpreters had been paid, and the pidgin had reached its limits. You always turned to the one language that was universally understood from the shores of the Atlantic to the coast of the China Sea, the language of metal. You can still feel the satisfying weight of the silver dirhams in Tabriz, the way they felt solid and real in your palm. You remember negotiations where you simply laid a small, finely woven cloth on the ground and began to place coins upon it. The clear, high-pitched clink of pure silver coins striking each other was a syllable. The soft, dull thud of a gold dinar was a word. The act of stacking them into neat piles was a sentence. Pushing a pile towards your counterpart was an offer. His pushing it back was a rejection. There was no ambiguity, no room for misinterpretation or poetic flourishes. The weight, the color, the purity of the metal, this was the only truth that mattered. It was a language of pure value, and its grammar was understood by every merchant, nomad, and king on earth. It was the bedrock of certainty in a babbling world. The Genos sailor beside you gives up on his pantomime and simply sighs. Looking out at the endless blue, you feel a pang of sympathy. You turn to him and use one of the few words you have made a point to learn on this voyage. Constantinople, you ask, pointing forward, towards the hazy line of the horizon. A wide grin splits his face. See. Constantinople, he says, clapping you on the back. For a brief moment, you have connected. It's a clumsy pidgin exchange, a tiny echo of the linguistic compromises that hold the world together. You smile and turn back to the sea, the silent, reassuring language of the gold in your purse, speaking a quiet promise of the wealth that awaits. The Genos captain, in a rare moment of camaraderie, invites you into his personal cabin. It is a small, cramped space, smelling of brine and stale wine, but it is his kingdom. With a proud flourish, he shows you his one great treasure, a small, painted icon of a saint framed in gilded wood, secured to the wall. He crosses himself and beams at you, the simple pride of ownership shining on his face. You smile and nod, but the sight of his modest treasure has triggered the memory of another, far grander and infinitely more terrifying display of wealth. Your mind leaves the gently rocking ship and flies back to the sun-baked plains of Persia. It had been a summons, not an invitation. Your caravan was traveling through the lush summer pastures, favored by the Ilkhan's court, when a patrol of horsemen intercepted you. They were not bandits. They were members of the Keshig, the Khan's imperial guard, their lamellar armor polished to a blinding sheen, their banners snapping in a wind. Their leader informed you, in the cold, direct manner, of the Mongols, that the Khan wished to have words with you. An invitation from a wolf to a lamb is not a matter of choice. You had no option but to obey. You were escorted to the Orju, the Khan's mobile capital. To call it a camp would be a profound understatement. It was a sprawling city of pristine white felters, laid out in streets and avenues with geometric precision. You saw merchants from a dozen nations, artisans in their workshops, falconers with their birds, and priests of every faith, Nestorian Christians, Buddhists, Muslims, and shamans all coexisting under the Khan's brutal patronage. This was the paradox of Mongol rule, a source of endless debate for scholars, a nomadic empire that built grand, permanent capitals, yet whose heart was still here, in a city of felt and wood that could be packed up and moved in a week. It was the power of the steppe, but with the luxuries of a settled civilization. Your escort led you past it all, to the very center of the city, to the Khan's personal pavilion. It was immense, larger than the governor's mansion in Samarkand. Its exterior covered not in plain felt, but in dazzling cloth of gold that shimmered under the afternoon sun. The guards at the entrance were giants, their faces impassive, their hands resting on the hilts of their swords. You felt your own status shrink with every step. You, a man of considerable wealth and influence on the road, were reduced to a dusty supplicant in the space of a few hundred yards. You were made to wait, and then ushered inside, bowing low as you crossed the threshold. The sheer opulence was breathtaking. The air was thick with the scent of a losewood incense. The floor was a sea of priceless Kerman carpets, so thick your boots sank into them. The lattice walls were hung with shimmering silks from Cathay, embroidered with dragons and phoenixes, golden ewers, silver platters, and bowls set with turquoise and lapis lazuli were piled on low tables. And there, at the back of the pavilion, seated on a low throne carved from a single piece of sandalwood and draped in snow leopard pelts, was the Khan. He was not a large man, but the power he radiated filled the vast space through an interpreter. You were directed to a specific spot on a carpet to the left, the side of lesser honor. You knew the etiquette. Never step on the threshold, never point a finger at the Khan, never spill what you were given. A servant in a silk tunic offered you a wide, shallow bowl made of polished silver. It was filled to the brim with kumis, fermented mare's milk. It was the drink of hospitality, and to refuse it was a deadly insult. You took the bowl, bowed your head, and drank. The liquid was sour, fizzy, and alcoholic. You fought to keep your face a mask of placid enjoyment, praying it would stay in your stomach. The Khan regarded you with bored, intelligent eyes. He asked a few perfunctory questions. The road from the east, is it safe? What is the price of Venetian glass these days? Are the Genoes still fighting the Venetians at sea? It was not a conversation. It was an assessment, a demonstration. He was reminding you that the petty details of your life, the dangers you faced, the profits you sought were all just minor events taking place inside his world, a world he owned. And in that moment, in that golden pavilion, you understood the fundamental difference between your wealth and his. Your fortune, which you guarded so jealously, was a mobile, precarious thing. It existed in the fragrant dust of your spices, in the numbers in your secret ledger, and in the fragile promise of a letter of credit. If you were to die here, it would scatter like sand. The Khan's wealth was of another order entirely. His wealth was the ground beneath your feet, the million souls he ruled, the armies he could raise with a word. Your wealth was something you did. His wealth was something. He was the audience ended as abruptly as it began. He waved a hand in dismissal. A guard pressed a gift into your hands as you left a single, finely crafted water skin. It was a gesture of both staggering condescension and calculated protection. You had been noticed. You were now under the Khan's peace. You backed out of the pavilion, your heart hammering, the taste of sour milk still in your mouth. Your mind snaps back to the present. You are in the captain's cabin, looking at his little gilded icon. It seems so small, so simple. You finally, Understand the chasm that separates a man who makes a fortune from a man who commands one. It is the difference between a river and the mountain that is its source. Land is a constant presence now, a dark green ribbon off the port side of the ship. The coast of Thrace. The sailors say you will see the glow of Constantinople by morning. The end is so close you can almost taste it. A flavor of wood smoke, baked, bread, and civilization that you imagine lies just beyond the horizon. The journey is closing its circle. In this quiet, liminal space between the vastness of the sea and the promise of the city, your mind turns to the cargo you have so carefully guarded for nearly a year. You think of the barrels in the hold, the fragrant cloves, the sharp pepper, the sweet nutmeg. They are the tangible proof of your endeavor, the physical embodiment of your profit. But as you stand on the deck, watching the last light fade, a deeper, more unsettling understanding begins to dawn. You realize the spices were never your most important cargo. Your mind drifts back across the map of your journey, but instead of seeing roads and mountains, you see faces. You see the serene face of a Buddhist monk in a monastery carved from a cliffside in Kutcha, who sold you a small charm for safe travels. You remember studying it later and noticing the folds of the Buddhist robe were carved in a way that was unnervingly similar to the Greek statues you'd seen depicted on old coins. You see the earnest face of a Nestorian Christian merchant in Merv, who told you a story about a clever fox that was almost identical to a fable your Sogdian grandfather used to tell, only the names were different. You were a customer, a fellow, traveler, but you now see you were also a conduit, a bee, flying from one garden of the mind to another, carrying invisible pollen on your legs, cross-fertilizing the world's beliefs and stories without ever intending to. This thought blossoms into a larger one. It wasn't just fables and artistic styles you carried. It was knowledge. It was technology. You remember the first time you saw true paper, a marvel brought by a trader from Cathay. Now, there are paper mills in Samarkand and Tabriz, and the clumsy parchment you grew up with is being replaced. The knowledge of how to make it traveled west in a merchant's mind, a set of instructions more valuable than any bolt of silk. You've heard whispers of the black powder the Chinese used for celebratory fireworks. And you've also heard how Mongol siege engineers are now using that same powder to blast through the walls of cities. An idea, a recipe, a formula. These things have no weight. They take up no space in a saddlebag. You cannot text them or count them. And yet, they are the cargo that truly reshapes the world. And your quest for profit is the unwitting engine that delivers them as the sky deepens. To a dark violet, this line of thinking takes a darker, more profound turn. The network you travel is not just one of roads and ideas, but of bodies. It is a web of breath, blood, and touch that now stretches from one end of the known world to the other. You remember the shared waterskin in the desert, the crowded warmth of the caravanserai, the press of bodies in the marketplace in Tabriz, the rats skittering on the docks in Trebizond. You recall a fever that swept through a village you passed, and the coughing cameleer who had to be left behind in a dizzying moment of intellectual vertigo. You grasp the awesome and terrifying scale of this interconnectedness, a sickness that begins with a marmot on the remote steppes of Mongolia no longer dies with the local tribe. It can catch a ride. It can travel in the lungs of a horseman, in the gut of a flea hiding in a bolt of silk, on the hands of a merchant counting his coins. It can travel with you. The thought is staggering. A sneeze in Kashgar could, in theory, become a plague in Genoa. Future generations will speak of the world being remade by voyages across the great oceans. But you are living in the heart of the first great globalization, the vast, continent-spanning Afro-Eurasian exchange. Your caravan is not just a commercial enterprise, it is a biological vector. You look down at your hands in the dim light. These hands have measured spices, tied knots, and counted silver. But they have also, unintentionally, passed a Buddhist prayer to a Christian, carried the secret of paper to the Persians, and perhaps, though you shudder at the thought, carried a fever from one city to the next, the personal goal of your journey to. Secure a fortune for yourself, and your family seems impossibly small now, dwarfed by the immense, unintended consequences of your actions. You are not just a merchant. You are an agent of historical change, a single blood cell in the circulatory system of the world, carrying nutrients, ideas, and poisons all at once. Ahead, a faint, flickering glow appears on the horizon. The great city. You set out on this journey to bring a small part of the East to the West. You now realize you have, in fact, dragged the entire world along with you. The ship enters the Bosphorus, and the world changes. The open sea is replaced by a narrow channel of deep blue water, with green hills rising on either side. You see fishing villages, villas, and watchtowers. The air itself seems charged with anticipation. Then you round a final bend, and the city reveals itself. Constantinople. The sight is so overwhelming it silences the entire deck. Even the boisterous Genoese sailors fall quiet in reverence. Before you, stretching for miles, are the legendary Theodosian walls, a triple line of fortifications that have repelled armies for 1,000 years. And behind them, a skyline of impossible beauty rises, a forest of marble columns, palace roofs, and 1,000 church domes that glitter in the morning sun, dominating it all. So vast it seems to hold up the sky itself is the great dome of the Hagia Sophia. You have heard tales of the city your entire life, but the stories did not do. It just as your ship doesn't dock just anywhere. It is guided by Byzantine patrol boats into the Golden Horn, the city's sheltered harbor. A scene of incredible, organized chaos. As you disembark, the air thick with the smell of the sea, fish, and baked bread, you are met by imperial officials. They are polite, but firm. You are a foreign merchant from the east, and as such, you are escorted to a specific district, a Middleton near the spice markets, a state-supervised enclave designed to house and watch traders like you. The freedom of the road has ended. You are now inside the gilded cage of a sophisticated empire. Over the next few days, you explore. You are awestruck by the city's scale and history. You walk through the ruins of the Hippodrome, imagining the roar of the chariot races. You stare up at ancient marble columns bearing Latin inscriptions from emperors who have been dust for centuries. And yet, you also see a city haunted by its own past. You see palaces that lie quiet, their gardens overgrown. You notice a certain weariness in the people's eyes. This is not the proud, unbroken capital of a century ago. This is a city still recovering from the brutal sack of 1204, when Western crusaders betrayed and plundered it. Historians will forever debate the city's true strength in this era, but you can feel it. A magnificent, glorious, but wounded place. Its native wealth now competing with the brash confidence of the Italian merchants in their own quarters across. The water. Your first order of business is professional. You find the warehouse of Rashniden, the Sogdian agent. He is an old man with kind eyes who recognizes the seal on your letter of credit immediately. Without fuss, the Fravardish network holds true, and the first part of your fortune is paid out to you in heavy, clinking gold coins. He then becomes your broker for the main event, the sale of your spices. The buyers are a mix of wealthy Byzantine courtiers, their robes scented with incense, and sharp-eyed Venetian agents, their Greek accented with the rhythm of Italy. The Final negotiation, the climax of your entire journey, feels strangely anticlimactic. You sit in a quiet, tiled room, the scent of your clothes and pepper filling the air. You present your samples. They make their offers. You make your counter offers. After facing sandstorms that could strip flesh from bone, after outwitting greedy officials, after staring into the impassive eyes of the great Khan himself, this simple, civilized haggling feels like a child's game. You are calm, detached, and unmovable. You know the quality of your goods, and you know the 1,000 perils you endured to bring them here. They will pay the price, and they do. The deal is struck. The barrels are handed over, and in return, chests are opened. You watch as they count out your payment, not in the silver you are used to, but in the legendary Byzantine solidus, each coin a perfect, heavy circle of pure gold, stamped with the image of the Emperor and Christ. The sheer weight of it is staggering. It is a fortune beyond your most ambitious dreams. The risk, the fear, the endless months of hardship it has all been transmuted into this beautiful, glittering pile of metal. You have done it. That night, you sit alone in your room in the Metaton. The gold is safely locked away. The city is quiet outside your window. A profound sense of relief washes over you, so powerful it leaves you weak. But chasing that relief is another unexpected emotion, a deep and aching loneliness. The journey is over. The singular, all-consuming purpose that has driven you every single day for the past year is gone. There are no more camels to check, no more routes to plan, no more dangers to anticipate. You are fantastically, liberatingly wealthy, and you are a complete stranger in a strange city, thousands of miles from anyone you know. The great adventure of your life has just become a memory. You are no longer a merchant on the road. You are just a rich man in a room. You look out at the foreign sky, a survivor, a success, a legend in your own mind, wondering what on earth you are supposed to do next. And so, the story ends. The great journey is over. The dust has settled, the coins have been counted, and the long road now exists only in memory. You can feel the tension leaving your body, like a tightly wound rope slowly being unspooled. Let go of the anxieties of the road. There are no more storms on the horizon, no more watchers in the shadows. The dangers are all in the past, faded like footprints in the desert sand. All that remains is a deep and profound quiet, a calm that has been earned. Feel the cool, smooth weight of a single gold coin in your palm. It is no longer a symbol of risk, but a token of accomplishment, a smooth, worry stone of success. The frantic energy of the cities, the vast emptiness of the steppes, the roar of the sea-all of it fades into a gentle, distant hum. The world contracts now, from the scale of continents to the quiet, safe space of this room. The only journey left tonight is the slow, gentle drift into a deep and restful sleep. Your breathing slows, mirroring the calm rhythm of a caravan finally at rest after a long day. Each breath in is cool and soothing. Each breath out releases the last remnants of the day's worries. You are safe. You are secure. Your fortune is not in a bag of gold, but in this moment of perfect peace. The story is told. The adventure is complete. And now, it is time for rest. Imagine a quiet courtyard, somewhere peaceful, perhaps in a city you once called home. The sun is warm on the stone walls, and the gentle scent of jasmine is in the air. There is nothing to do, nowhere to go. There is only the feeling of stillness, of safety, of being completely at ease. Let that feeling envelop you now, a soft, warm blanket of tranquility. You have traveled far enough for one night. You are home now, in the quiet sanctuary of your own peaceful mind. You've reached the end of another cozy nappy tale. Sleep well, and remember you're always welcome here. Sweet dreams, nappy friend.